So hi everyone, so let us move on to our next topic. The second topic for this week, let us talk about the theory of Myra Levine, the conservation theory. So let us talk first about the author. So Myra Levine was born in Chicago in 1920. She died on March 20, 1996 at the age of 75. In 1944, she earned a diploma in nursing from the Cook County School of Nursing. Then she went on to complete her Bachelor of Science in Nursing from the University of Chicago in 1949. So, her Master's of Science in Nursing was given to her from Wayne State University in Detroit in 1962. She earned an honorary doctorate from Loyola University in 1992. So aside from being a major influence in the nursing profession, Levine was also a family woman, a good friend, an educator, administrator, student of humanities, scholar, enabler, and confidante. So, rolled into one, no? She worked before as a private duty nurse. She was a civilian nurse in U.S. Army. And she was once a clinical instructor. And then later on, naging director, and so on. So, marami rin siyang achievement like those our previous theorists. She was creative and knowledgeable, opinionated, and global in her concept of nursing. So, Levine is a nursing theorist that is known for her esoteric model of nursing called the conservation model. So in her theory, the goal of nursing is to promote adaptation and maintain wholeness using the 4 principles of conservation. So what are these 4 principles of conservation? I'll be discussing each one of these in the next slides. Okay? So, in 1989, Levine proposed the following. These are the 4 principles. The conservation of energy of the individual. The second one is the conservation of the structural integrity of the individual. The next one is the conservation of the personal integrity of the individual. And the last one, but not the least, of course, the conservation of the social integrity of the individual. So what does that mean, these principles? Okay, and how this will be applied? So in the next slides again, it will be explained. I will explain it. Okay, she was also an author of books, no? Meron din siya mga publications. So, the first edition of her book about Introduction to Clinical Nursing was published in 1969. And in 1971, she was able to publish the Renewal for Nursing. And the second edition of Introduction to Clinical Nursing was published in 1973. So, the central of the conservation model is to improve the physical and emotional well-being of a person. By considering the 4 principles of conservation, she set out, diba? So, nursing's role in conservation is to help the person with the process of keeping together the total person through the least amount of effort. So what does it mean? You will be there as a nurse to help the client. Bakit kailangan to keep together? Of course, kapag may illness ang isang patient, so hindi dapat mahiwala yung aspects niya. So just like what other theorists like Jean Watson mentioned about different aspects of the person, diba? We have our mind, body, and spirit. So, the goal of the nurse is to keep it together so that the patient can recover fast. Okay. And then, Her theory includes three major concepts of conservation models. These are the wholeness or holism, second one, adaptation, and conservation. Wholeness. So what does it mean? The holism. A person Tao is an open system. Wholeness emphasizes a sound, organic, progressive, mutually between diversified functions and parts within an entirety, the boundaries of which are open and fluid. So, meron daw fluid. Ano ba yung fluid na yon? So, later, isa-isahin din natin yon. So, here, wholeness, according to Levine, so wholeness is not merely the absence of disease, no? Or being healthy. So, it means, according to her, hindi lang dahil healthy yung isang individual, wala naman siyang illness, ay whole siya. So, when you say wholeness, it means that there is a completeness of a person in all aspects of human existence. So, a person daw is whole if she is emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, morally, physically, and socially stable and capable. Diba? So, stable and capable, you have to take note of that word. So, there should be a balance among these factors. Diba? So, according to Levine, wholeness exists when the interaction or constant adaptations to the environment permit the assurance of integrity, or if the person is able to adapt whatever changes between the within or the internal and the external environment. Okay? And then, so, diba, sabi niya, assurance of integrity. So, integrity means here that the oneness of the individuals, emphasizing that they respond in an integrated, singular fashion to environmental challenges. That a certain individual is able to adapt. Okay? So, the next concept is the adaptation. So, adaptation, according to Levine, is a process of change whereby the individual retains his integrity within the realities of his internal and external environment, wherein the result of this is the conservation. So it is a matter of degree, not all or nothing process. So adaptation, it means here that for a person to live harmoniously with his internal and external environment, he or she must be able to conquer or to fight or to survive the challenges that might threaten his well-being. So, according to Alikud and Tommy, so adaptation is an ongoing process of change whereby an individuals retain their integrity nga. Ito nga. So, whatever challenges to the individual, nananatili siya or she or he was able to adapt, no? And this adaptation includes three characteristics, and these are the historicity, specificity, and redundancy. Okay, so history or historicity. This means that adaptive responses and abilities to adapt to changes are also based from past experiences. So, yung person, makaka-adapt siya in a certain situation or ma-survive yung isang situation based on the past experiences, kung how niya hinandle yun in the previous experience. And redundancy. According to Levine, this is the fail-safe anatomical, physiological, and psychological options available to individual to ensure continued adaptation. While specificity means that it is an adaptive patterns that can be genetic to the individual, so from genes, as well as influenced by social and cultural factors. So kung paano mag-adapt yung kanilang yung genes nila, okay, or ano pa yung influence ng society and their culture, no? So it might help a certain person to adapt the challenges or to adapt the changes. Okay, so in adaptation, it involves environment where we are constantly and actively involved. Diba? We are of course interacting with our environment, and it is the person and his or her relationship to the environment is what counts. And there are 3 levels of external environment, no? The perceptual, operational, and conceptual. So when you say perceptual, it includes the aspect of the world that individuals are able to intercept and interpret with their sense organs. So natidetect mo to, no? Perceptual, nalalaman ng isang tao. So from the word sense organs, what are your 5 senses with the use of your 5 senses? Operational, contain things that affect individuals physically, although they cannot directly perceive them. Okay, so ito yung mga nakaka-epekto sa client or by the individual physically. And then the conceptual, it refers to the environment, is constructed from cultural patterns characterized by spiritual existence and mediated by the symbol of language, thought, and history. So involves na dito kung ano yung culture nila, kung ano yung kanilang spiritual belief, so kasama na siya dito. And then so another term under your adaptation is the organismic response, no? It is the capacity of the individual to adapt to his or her environmental conditions. And under adaptation, we have 4 levels of integration. The first one is the fight or flight. Actually, this is the most primitive response, wherein the individual responds by being on alert to find more information and to ensure his or her safety and well-being. So, ito na yung gagawin mo, diba? Ay, this is the problem. So, ano yung pwedeng gawin? Usually, the patient do that, diba? Parang to gather information. So, ano pa bang mga ginagawa natin ngayon pag meron tayong nalaman na tulad na lang ng issue about the COVID-19? So, isa-search mo na ngayon, ano ba ang mga informations na pwede dito? Or, pwedeng, ano ka na lang, tumakas ka na lang or takasan mo na lang yung problem, or it depends upon to the person. Okay, then inflammatory response, this refers to or protects the self from insult in a hostile environment. So responses using available energy to remove or keep out unwanted irritants or pathogens. So environment or clean environment is very important here. And then the number 3 is responses or response to stress, or refers to the wear and tear of life, is recorded on the tissues and reflects long-term hormonal responses to life experiences that cause structural changes. So this is given naman talaga daw, di ba? Yung body natin habang tumatanda, so may wear and tear talaga. Nagkaroon ng maraming changes sa katawan natin from baby pag tumanda ang tao. So may mga changes na talaga sa kanyang structural system. So it is characterized by irreversibility, no? It's not reversible, diba? And influences the way patient respond to nursing care. So meron pa rin palang magagawa si nurse dito. So kung magaling, kung effective ang iyong care, could be positive din ang respond ng iyong patient. And then number 4, perceptual awareness. this occurs only as the individual experiences the world around him or her. Okay. Then, individual uses this response to seek and to maintain safety. So, that is very understandable naman. And, conservation. So, another concept, which is the conservation. So, conservation describes the way complex systems are able to continue to function even when severely challenged. Diba? Kahit naman may sakit yung katawan mo, nakikipag-fight. Actually, when you study the anatomy, the physiology, the pathology, you can see that the client's body or your body is actually fighting. No? It's fighting even though there is a presence of illness. Just like, for example, pag nasugatan ka, nagpa-fight, biglang dumudugo. Pero nagkaroon ng may platelets dyan to magkaroon ng blood clot. Or, kapag nagkaroon ka naman ng infection, dumadami ang iyong WBC, yung white blood cells, which is your soldiers of your body to fight against the infection. Okay? The goal of conservation is health and the strength. So, yung goal niya, health and the strength to confront disability as the rules of conservation and integrity hold. Okay? It focuses on achieving balance of energy. So, balance of energy is very important in conservation. Supply and demand within the biological realities unique to the individual. So, unique kasi because all of us, each one of us, we have different needs, we are unique, di ba? Wala naman talagang nothing is exactly the same, even the twins. Okay. So, these are now the 4 conservation principles that I've mentioned a while ago. So, the first one was the conservation of energy. So, from the word the conservation of energy, so you will save energy, diba? It refers to the individual requires a balance of energy and a constant renewal of energy to maintain life. So, this means, or conservation of energy means that you need to balance, no, between the energy input and output to avoid fatigue. Ma'am, what do you mean by input or output? Okay, later on, pag actually on the second sem, meron na kayo measuring intake and output skill. So, when you say input, this refers to the fluids that you take, diba? The fluids that you take, like water, juices, and all kinds of fluids. And output, so it refers to the fluid you excrete like your urine. Okay, so dapat balance daw yun. Kung halimbawa, ang ininom mong water is 1,000 ml, so dapat within the day, kung 1,000 ml, at least malapit doon ang iyong urine output, at least 900 or 1,000 din ang iyong output. Dapat balance yung iyong intake or input and output. Okay, so what else? How can you conserve energy? Maybe you can provide or you can help the client, you provide the client to have adequate rest. Papahingain mo si patient. Okay? Or you can help the client do the range of motion exercises, or we call it ROM. So, ano naman yung ROM? You will encounter it again on your next sem. So, yung mga exercises, just like for example, mayroong active ROM or passive ROM. So, when you say passive ROM, you're the one doing for the patient. So, halimbawa, exercise mo yung kamay niya, may abduction, adduction, mga ganon-ganon. Okay? And then, what else? Giving assistance to the patient. Okay? Especially if your patient is are not able to move, to walk, to stand, diba? You have to provide assistance to the client. Like for example, gusto niya pumunta sa CR, so tutulungan mo siya. Or And providing the client proper nutrition, that is also very important. And the other one is the next one, or the second one, is the conservation of structural integrity. So, according to this principle, healing is a process of restoring structural and functional integrity and defense of wholeness. Nurses can limit the amount of tissue involved in disease by early recognition of functional changes and by nursing intervention. So, what does it mean? Diba? So, a process of restoring structural and functional integrity. Diba? Para ma-maintain mo yung wholeness ng isang tao. So, sabi niya dito, can limit the amount of tissue involved. So, pwede mo papahingain nga rin yung patient. So, para hindi naman sobrang mas mapagod pa siya. So, mapagod pa siya doon sa yung tissue involved, 'di ba? So, halimbawa yung instead na kung kaya mong gawin for the patient muna dahil alam mong under recovery pa si patient bago pa lang siyang surgery, you can help the client with that. Also, this refers, ito, conservation of structural integrity. This refers to maintaining or restoring the structure of the body, of course, by preventing physical breakdown and promoting healing. So, ano ang pwedeng gawin ni nurse, di ba? Pwede ka, example nito, halimbawa, meron nga siyang surgical, or meron siyang nag-undergo siya ng surgery para hindi niya laging magamit yung tissue na yun na may wound pa, or hindi niya maigalaw, ililimit mo yung movement ni patient, or i-splint mo you can provide a splint doon sa area, or binder doon sa area kung saan meron siyang wound para makapag-rest muna yung area na yun, yung tissue involved that, para ma-promote yung healing doon sa area na yun. And then, ano pa ibang example nito? Structural integrity. Maybe you can help the client to have a good personal hygiene, like you can help the client brush her or her teeth, or you can help the client take a bath, okay? So, yung mga ganun. And, so, by doing so, you are preserving the structural integrity of the body, and by maintaining the physical hygiene, and then also you can help, 'di ba? Katulad lang din kanina doon sa nutrition. So, mas mai-improve niya yung mas maganda, madadagdagan mo yung pag-improve ng kanyang nutrition para mas yung structural integrity, it refers to the body itself, 'di ba? The structure of the body. And then number 3, the conservation of personal integrity. Kung kanina, structural integrity, this time I'll be talking about personal integrity. So, it begins with the erosion of privacy and the creation of anxiety. This includes the recognition of the holiness of each person. So, when you say conservation of personal integrity, so this entails the recognizing, you have to recognize an individual as someone who strives or who want to be recognized, to be respected, okay? And they are bibigyan mo siya ng chance for a self-determination to make their own decision. It is very important yung self-worth and a sense of identity. So, ito yung very important sa personal integrity. So, ano pa ang pwede natin gawin? This can be achieved through appreciating the patient's effort towards recovery. For example, nakita mo si patient, pagpasok mo sa room, wow, nag-exercise siya. So, positive regard again. So, sabihin mo, wow, very good. You are improving. So, mga ganon. So, you are helping the client to or the patient to regain his self-esteem and body image. Okay? So in that way, the patient can already recover from emotional burden, di ba, caused by the illness. Okay? Yung naging illness niya, na feeling niya, bumababa ang kanyang self-worth dahil hindi na siya makakilos, hindi na siya makagalaw. So you appreciate the client. Okay? Then, dito rin daw sa personal integrity, personhood must be preserved. And the fourth one is the conservation of social integrity. So, meron kang kanina, ano yun? Conservation of energy, conservation of what? Of structural. So, pag sinabi mo structural, referring to the physical system of the patient, no? Yung kanyang paliguan mo siya or tulungan mo siya para ma-maintain yung structural ano niya. Okay? Ano pa? Personal integrity, diba? The personhood, the self-worth. And then the last one is the social integrity. So, life gains made in true social communities and health is socially determined. So, it involves interpersonal relationship. So, when you say interpersonal relationship, diba? Ito nga yung interaction with another person. Okay? So, conservation of social integrity entails an individual is recognized as someone who resides within a family. So, lahat naman tayo, ang individual, we have our family. We belong to a family, to a community, to a certain religious group. Ethnic group could be. Okay? Sabi nga nila, no man is an island. So, that quote, you hear that ever since you were young. I'm sure you're familiar with that quote. So, because your family, your community, your society, that serves as your support system that sometimes you need for your recovery as a patient, or the patient need for his recovery. So, pwede rin ditong isama natin yung provide for family. So, dito pumapasok yung pwedeng may family members. So, paano naman kaya ngayon, no, during the COVID-19? So, pag ang patient nagkasakit, wala pa dun yung family, wala siyang support system within the room. So, dapat siguro ang gagawin ng isang hospital or isang institution, paano nila i-provide yun na meron pa rin siyang na i-maintain mo pa rin yung social integrity niya, which is really important. Support system is very important for the recovery of the patient para hindi lalo siyang ma-depress at the more na mag-decline ang kanyang system. So maybe you can provide or you can help the patient to communicate. So every day, or kung pwede maya-maya, pwede siyang makipag-usap through group, chat with her family, or through messenger, video call, and etc. Diba? So, pwede rin, dito rin pumapasok yung conservation of social integrity. Yung kung napansin nyo sa mga sa mga hospital, diba, may mga chapel sila. Okay? Kasi, dito sa Pilipinas, most of us are Catholic, although not 100%. So, kinukonsider din under conservation of social integrity to assess the patient in his or her religious belief. Kung ano yung mga religious belief or religious needs niya. So, kung gusto niyang makausap ng pari, makapagsimba, so you have to provide that also. Okay? So, the major assumptions. So, these are the assumption of Myra Levine. So, according to her, the assumption about individuals, each individual is an active participant in interactions with the environment, constantly seeking information from it. And that's true naman talaga, diba? Diba? That is very self-explanatory. We're interacting with our environment, no? Kahit hindi tayo makalabas ngayon, how did you interact with the other person, with your environment? Diba? You communicate with your friends through your messenger, through Facebook, etc. Okay, you're constantly studying, researching. Okay. So the individual is a sentient being, and the ability to interact with the environment seems ineluctably tied to his sensory organs. Of course, diba, we are using our five senses to interact with our environment. And change is the essence of life and is unceasingly as long as life goes on. Of course, change is constant nga, diba? So, it always happen every day. Even, diba, what happened today, tomorrow is not the same na. No, what happened today at what you eat today, so pwede siguro umulit siya tomorrow, but it's not the same na ang mga pangyayari on the next day. But, so there is always changes. Change is a characteristic of life. Then, assumptions about nursing. Ultimately, the decisions for nursing intervention must be based on the unique behavior of the individual patient. So, it also, yung theory ni Watson na sinasabi niya rin, diba, the care should be individualized. So, Levine proposed a patient-centered nursing care. Okay, patient nursing care, which means when you as a nurse, when you provide care to the patient, it should be individualized nursing care. So, parang katulad din ni Jane Watson, it is predicated on the reality of common experience. Everyone is unique individual, and as such, he requires a unique constellation of skills, techniques, and ideas designed specifically for him. Ma'am, hirap naman. Sa 20 po yung patient ko. Paano ko individualize yung care? 'Di ba? Kaya talagang dapat sana yung patient ratio is tama lang din sa nurse. Pero kung ganoon man, still, kung ano yung pwede mong gawin, kahit konti, may individualize mo lang yung care for the patient. So, which means, paano individualize? Diba? Different. Kasi different din ang needs ng individual. Hindi lahat naman ng pasyente, kahit sabihin mo, pare-pareho silang nilagnat. They have physically, they have the same illness, they have the same diagnosis. But then again, ano pa ba ang ibang aspect? Not only the physical, diba? Psychological, spiritual, social, so maraming aspect. So, the meta-paradigm of Levine, nursing. So, how did she define nursing? So, nursing is a human interaction. So, that this is very self-explanatory when you say interaction. So, of course, it involves relationship. And again, what is that kind of relationship? Diba? Relationship with your patient. Okay? So, you have to interact with your patient. Not only with your patient, with the family of the patient, and then the surroundings. The nurse participates actively, of course, in every patient's environment, and much of what she does supports his adjustments as he struggles in the predicament of illness. So, you are supporting the patient, no? While ito, may sakit si patient, for recovery, nandyan ka sa patient, nandyan ka to give care with love. The goal is to promote adaptation and maintain wholeness. Okay, para makapag-adapt yung system niya, makapag-adapt yung buong, the patient can adapt holistically. So, kaya nga wholeness. And then, a person is the unique individual in unity. So, again, with individualized needs and integrity, feeling, believing, thinking, and a whole. Integrity means the person has freedom of choice and movement, sense of identity, and self-worth. So, that's what integrity means, no? So, she or can make decision of himself. System of systems. Okay, and its wholeness express the organization of all the contributing parts. So, according to Levine, it is very important for you to understand the parts of that person. for you to be able to understand the whole aspect. So, isa-isahin mong intindihin ang bawat aspect na yon para mabuo mo yung wholeness na yon. It's like puzzle, no? So, ganun ang individual or person. So, health. So, it is socially determined by the ability to function in a reasonably normal manner. So, predetermined by social groups and is not just an absence of pathological conditions, as I mentioned kanina. So, when you say health, according to Levine, it's not just because the person has no illness. Normal naman lahat ng physical niya, but then you have to look at the spiritual aspect, the emotional aspect, the psychological aspect, the social aspect. Health is also culturally determined. It is not an entry on its own, but rather a definition imparted by the ethos and beliefs of the groups to which individuals belong. So, it is affected. So, the environment has really impact, no? The external environment and the internal environment has really an impact to the patient, okay? Or the society. So, on environment is the context in which we live our lives. Of course, dyan tayo nakatira. We interact with the environment, not as a passive backdrop, but as an active one. Humans are active participants in it. So, we actively react or interact with our environment. So, these are the 9 models of guided assessment, the 4 conservation principles theory of nursing. So, for you to be able to assess or give your intervention or to the client to help the client recovery, you have to check the following models. You have to get the vital signs of the patient, the body movement and positioning, nakaka-move ba si patient, nakakagalaw ba siya, kaya nga pwede mo siyang turuan ng ROM or the range of motion exercises. How about the positioning, natatransfer mo ba siya, namumove mo ba siya to side to side. Meeting personal hygiene needs, nakakapaligo ba si patient, did you help your client to take a bath, to brush her or her teeth. Pressure gradient system and nursing interventions. So, that's ano ba yung mga nursing interventions na ibinigay mo sa kanya. So, nursing determination and provision of nutritional needs, pressure gradient system and nursing, local application of hot and cold. Ano ba itong hot and cold pala dito? It's, di ba kapag merong sukat or kapag merong na strain. Ayan. So, kailangan mo ng, cold compress muna for 24 hours, then hot compress kung merong inflammation. So, mga ganun. Administration of medicine and establishing an aseptic environment. When you say aseptic environment, is free of microorganisms. So, malinis dapat ang environment. Okay? So, this is now the application of Levine's theory into nursing practice. So, let me read this scenario. A 75-year-old man currently staying in a long-term care facility. He has a history of congestive heart failure and generalized weakness. Currently, he states that he has been feeling depressed due to his inability to do his own personal care. He also states that he misses his old friends in the community. So, napakalungkot, no? Nandun lang siya sa hospital kasi nagkaroon siya ng heart attack. So, may weakness siya, so hindi niya masyadong maigalaw yung kanyang mga part of his body. So, hindi siya makakakain ng maayos, hindi siya makakapag-toothbrush, hindi siya makakapaligo ng maayos, gano'n. So, how will you use the 4 principles of conservation to address his needs? So, ano nga ulit yun? Conservation of energy, ano yun? Conservation of, ano yung kasunod? Structural integrity, personal integrity, social integrity. So, how will you apply that principle in his case? Well, let us see. So for the conservation of energy, as a nurse, you have to ensure the patient has enough rest periods to provide the energy needed for activities of daily living. So, pag nakita mo si patient na ay naglalaro na lang ng cellphone, nagsiselfone, hindi natulog ng maayos, gabi siyang matulog. So, you have to provide rest. Ano pa? Kung masyadong noisy ang environment, syempre you have to adjust, no? Kung ano ba yung mga noisy na yan, you have to manipulate your environment. And then, in conservation of structural integrity, so the patient is at high risk for immobility due to CHF. What is CHF again? It's the congestive heart failure and weakness. So the nurse will need to put intervention in place for prevention of pressure ulcer. So what does it mean? So may panghihina siya, hindi siya makamove. So baka hindi siya man lang kahit even in simply positioning her or his body, so hindi siya makapag-change position. So pag palaging nakahiga si patient, palaging may pressure doon sa kanyang back, so pwedeng magkaroon niya ng pressure ulcer. What do you mean by pressure ulcer? So pwedeng nagkaroon ng sugat doon. So pwedeng magkaroon ng sugat na pwedeng mag-lead into infection, na magkaroon din ng problem, no? So pagka may sugat, so may problem doon sa structural integrity of the patient. So anong gagawin mo as a nurse? You have to change the patient position at least every 2 hours para magkaroon ng blood circulation doon at maiwasan mo yung pressure ulcer, pag-develop ng pressure ulcer. And then, on conservation of personal integrity, so what will you do as a nurse? So the nurse recognizes that the patient wants to maintain a sense of independence. So she will take steps to have the patient achieve as high a level of independence as possible with personal care. Example, working together with a physiotherapist and occupational therapy. So you have tutulungan mo si patient. Dadalhin mo siya doon sa PT or sa occupational therapy para ma-exercise yung kanyang body, para ma-improve at maibalik yung kanyang kahit papano yung kanyang dating nakakakilo siya, nakaka-move siya, that he will be able to do activities of daily living, just like simply eating on his own, moving his body from side to side, doing the ROM or range of motion exercises, and a lot, okay, and etc. So, in conservation of social integrity, as a nurse, you can facilitate the maintenance of old friendship. How? By contacting the family and asking if they would be able to take him out on social leave. Also, the nurse can discuss with the interdisciplinary team, example, the activity or recreation aids, o baka mayroon namang pwedeng mga activities para ma-divert yung attention niya at magkaroon siya ng socialization, diba? It is a ways of having the patient form new connections with other patient within the long-term care facility. So, kapag nagkaroon sila ng activity, recreation aids, diba, magsama-sama sila, so na magkakaroon siya ng bagong friendship, bagong society, okay, na wherein the patient can have the sense of belongingness. Okay? So, that actually ends my lecture for this week. So, I hope you learned something from that, and then you will be able to differentiate each contribution of the jurist. And these are the references of my presentation. And again, let me end my lecture by reading these quotes from Hebrews 10:24-25. Let us consider how we may help one another toward love and good deeds, encouraging one another. So God bless you all, and good day.